Okay, so we are ready to begin. So we'll start. We'll start with the homage to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Okay, so good morning, everybody, and this will be the class of August 29th, 2020. And so we now are going through the Anguttara Nikaya, the Book of Fours, and we come to Sutta number 67, which is given the title Snakes. And originally, when I made up the syllabus for this program, I had skipped over the sutta, and I was planning to go directly from sutta number 66 to, I think, sutta number 68. But then, rather by a strange coincidence, last Saturday evening, I was watching the PBS evening news, and they had a segment on snake bites and the large death toll that results from snake bites. And I've kept that segment, or I recaptured that segment, and so we could look at some of it, since it will be relevant. Well, first let us take the beginning of the sutta. Okay, so the sutta begins when the Buddha is living at Savatthi, and then at that time, a certain monk was bitten by a snake and died. Okay, and then a number of monks come to the Buddha and they report this to the Buddha. And then the Buddha says that surely that monk did not pervade what's called the four royal families of snakes with a mind of loving kindness. For if he had done so, he would not have been bitten by a snake and died. Okay, so what are the four royal families of snakes? And according to the commentary, this is said with reference to the snakes whose bite is venomous. For it's only those with a venomous bite that are included in the four so-called royal family of snakes. And then the sutta mentions, I use the Pali words because I don't know what the equivalent would be in biological terms, in the classification of types of snakes. So we have the four types of the Virupaka, the Airapata, Chabyaputa, and the Gautamaka family of snakes. So then surely that monk did not pervade these four royal families of snakes with a mind of loving kindness, for if he had done so, he would not have bitten by the snake and died. So originally I thought that this sutta would not be of so much interest to us today. But then, as I mentioned, in the evening, last Saturday evening, I was watching the PBS evening news, and they had a segment on snake bites and the large number of fatalities that come from snake bites. Yet according to this report, in every year around the world, 100,000 people die from snake bites, and 450,000 people suffer from life-altering injuries. And in 2018 alone, more people died from snake bite than was killed in war. So you could just look at it. Yeah, so this is India. So this is the Buddha's country. So how many people?
There's no audio.
Oh,
Monday, in order to share audio, you need to re-share the screen. And when you share the screen, there is a choice to share the system audio.
okay. So I stop share.
Yes, and then re-share. Now you go to share.
Share screen.
Yes, share screen.
And at the bottom left, you will see a little box where you can say
Share computer sound. Is that it?
Correct.
Okay. Now it should be okay. Okay now?
You have to play video.
Yeah, I'm going to play, of course.
1 million people have died from snake
We can
bites
hear. Thank
in
you.
decades. Many happen this time of year, which is season. Globally, someone dies from a poisonous snake bite every 5 minutes, and another 4 people will suffer a permanent disability. While researchers work on finding new ways to produce antivenom to help treat poisonous snake bites, in some parts of the world, mainly in Asia and Africa, snake bites remain a daily and deadly risk. Special correspondent Benedict Moran and video journalist Jorgen Samso reported this story last year before the coronavirus outbreak. A warning, some of the images may be disturbing.
Okay, we don't need the full report, but I will make this link available for those who want to see the full report about snake bites. And I'll just speak a little bit about some of my own experience or knowledge about other monks or monastics who have encountered snake bites. And you might think that because we practice Buddha Dharma and even practice loving kindness, that automatically protects us from snake bites. But that in fact is not the case. At the time I arrived in Sri Lanka, first arrived in Sri Lanka in 1972. I had heard that there had been previously an American monk living in Sri Lanka. I think his name was Jnana Sumana, if I'm not mistaken. And he was living in a kuti, a little cottage in the area called Bundala, which is in the southeast, very close to the ocean in the southeast corner of Sri Lanka. And around his kuti, there was a type of snake, which is called in Sinhala language, pulanga, which is a very deadly snake. And that snake would come onto the veranda of his kuti, of his little hut. And people would tell him that he should not go out on the veranda at night. And if he goes out, he should take a light, a lantern, to see the veranda. But he had been practicing the meditation on loving kindness. And so he thought that because he was practicing loving kindness meditation, that he would be sort of magically protected from snakes, from the bite of the snake. And so apparently one night he went out to do the walking meditation on the veranda without a light. And the next day, his body was found dead on the veranda. And according to the diagnosis or the autopsy, he had died from a snake bite, from the poison of the pulanga. And so while it's good and beneficial to do some meditation of loving kindness towards snakes, one shouldn't think that that is automatically a protection against snake bite. And I know there is a American Buddhist nun in the Tibetan tradition. Her name is Karma Legshi Tsomo. Now she is a professor in University of California in San Diego. but she was living for many years in Dharamsala in India, and she had gotten bitten by a snake very badly on her arm, so that she almost died from that snake bite and had to be brought to the hospital, and they had to do surgery to, in fact, her arm, I think it's the right arm, has skin grafted over it, which was necessary to protect the arm. And when I myself first came to Sri Lanka, I was living in a little hut on the edge of a hill. And the hut, it didn't have what we would call a proper bed, kind of bed that we have here in the US, but rather my bed consisted, there was a raised platform against the wall. And I think the platform had been filled with maybe bricks and mud over the top of the platform. And then over the mud surface, some planks had been laid out, and there was a rough mattress on top of the planks, the wooden planks. And one night, as I was about to get into bed, I would keep a kerosene lantern burning very, very lightly. I noticed something move in that thin region between the wall and the planks. And I looked closely, and I turned up the light of the lantern, and I looked, and it was a snake. It was a small, thin snake. And I wasn't able to identify types of snakes in Sri Lanka, since I had just come to the country just a couple of months earlier. And so I tried chanting blessing suttas in my mind, forming the wish, the determination, may the snake move away from my bed, may the snake move away from the bed. It didn't move. I would recite the name of the Buddha. I would recite Kuan Yin Bodhisattva. I would recite various other things, but the snake didn't move. I thought that I could take the broom and sweep the snake away, but I was afraid that the snake might be a violent kind of snake, which would react, which would jump up and run and attack me. And so I was getting sleepier and sleepier, but I didn't know how to get rid of the snake. And so finally I decided that below, at the foot of the hill where my kuti was located, across the road, there were a number of houses. And in one of those houses, the house right directly below my kuti, there was a Sinhalese layman who would often be very helpful to me. He would bring me water from the well and so forth. And he would do various tasks around the monastery. So I came out from my kuti and I shouted down. I was reluctant to do this since it was probably after 10 o'clock and I didn't want to wake him up, but I really had no choice. So I came out of my kuti and I shouted out, Somapala, Somapala. And within a few minutes, he came up. Then I told him about the snake and he looked and he said, oh, that's Mapala. Very dangerous, very dangerous. And then he took the broom and he swept the snake away and swept it out of the cottage. And finally, I was able to go to sleep. But perhaps if I hadn't called Somapala, perhaps I would have bitten by that snake and suffered very serious injury. Okay, so, when I first considered teaching this sutta, then I thought that this sutta maybe would not be of much interest to a contemporary readership. But then after I saw that report from PBS Evening News about the prevalence, the large number of snake bites and deaths from snake bites in Southeast Asia, in South Asia, in Africa, I thought it might be important to go through this sutta. Okay, so the sutta, basically the theme of the sutta is to use loving kindness as a way of warding off danger from snakes and then from other dangerous creatures. And so it's recited, actually in Sri Lanka, this sutta is part of the daily liturgy in many of the forest monasteries, because it's in the forest monasteries that the monks are likely or face a very real possibility of stepping on a snake or encountering snakes on the walkways. And so one begins by extending loving kindness to the 4 types of snakes, the 4 families of snakes. Then one extends loving kindness to other creatures, those without feet, those with 2 feet, those with 4 feet, these would be wild animals, those with many feet would be centipedes and millipedes. And then one expresses the wish, may no harm come to me from those with no feet, with 2 feet, with 4 feet, with many feet. And one wishes that all beings, all living beings, all creatures everywhere will meet with good fortune and that no harm would come to anyone. So those are the verses which are probably original, but then I suspect that this passage was probably added later, stating that the Buddha is measureless, the Dhamma is measureless, the Sangha is measureless or boundless, whereas creeping things, snakes, scorpions, centipedes, spiders, lizards, and rats are finite. Then one determines, I have made a safeguard, made protection, let these creatures retreat. And then one pays homage to the Blessed One, then homage to the 7 perfectly enlightened ones. These are the 7 Buddhas of the past. Vipassi, Siki, Vesabu, Kakusanda, Konagamana, Kassapa, and then our present Buddha, the Buddha Gautama. Yeah, I see that scorpions are included here. And I just tell you briefly, my experience with the scorpion bite is extremely painful. There was one time, I think this would have been in the late 1990s. I used to go in the late afternoon. There was a walkway outside the hermitage where I was living, outside the cottage. And there was a nice walkway, and I used to like to do walking meditation on that walkway. And then that afternoon, we had a sudden rainfall. And then after the rainfall, I decided the rain had stopped and I could do the walking meditation. So I went out onto the walkway and I started to do mindful walking back and forth. Then I put my foot down with one step, and I felt like I had stepped on a live electric wire. And I sort of jumped and I put the other foot down, and again, it felt like I had stepped on a live electric wire. And then I looked down on the walkway, and there was a scorpion. And the bite of the scorpion was extremely painful. Apparently what happened is that I had stepped on the scorpion with my right foot, and then the scorpion had jumped out of the way because it was probably as terrified of my foot as I was terrified of the scorpion, or startled by the bite of the scorpion. And so the scorpion probably jumped. And then when I put my left foot down, I had stepped on the scorpion in its new location and got stung again. It's not a bite, but it's a sting from the, what do you call these? The claws of the scorpion. Yeah, and then after this, getting stung by the scorpion, I went into the cottage, and then very soon after, I started to feel dizzy and faint. And then I went up to my room and I lay down on the bed. This must have been about 5, 6 in the evening. And then I slept right through. I fell asleep and slept right through until the next morning. So if you're ever in an area where there are scorpions, be very, very careful. And I think I was fortunate that this was a scorpion without, it was a poisonous scorpion, but the poison of that scorpion was not fatal. But there are said to,
Yes.
there are said to be some scorpions whose poison can be fatal.
I was going to say that, Bhante.
Who is that?
I was going to say you were very lucky that it was that kind of a scorpion.
Yeah, yeah. And what I'm told, the scorpion that stung me was, like, I would say medium size. What I'm told is that the scorpions with the poison that can be fatal are the very small ones.
Bhante,
Okay,
where was it in Sri Lanka that this happened?
excuse me?
Where did this happen? Which part of Sri Lanka?
This was in Kandy.
Okay,
Yeah, the encounter with the scorpion was in Kandy.
Candy.
The
Okay.
encounter with that snake called the Mapala when I first arrived in Sri Lanka, this was outside Balangoda.
Balangoda.
Yeah,
Okay.
you know
Yes.
Balangoda.
Yes. And
Okay.
Candy, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, so this was the temple of my teacher. My teacher is Venerable Balangoda Ananda Maitreya. And
Yes.
so his temple was Udumula. It's a village,
Right.
maybe about 2.5 miles from the town of Kandy.
Right.
Ante,
Yeah,
the sting of the scorpion, I understand is in the tail of the scorpion. Like
that is right. That is right. I'm sorry. It's not the claw. It's the tail of the scorpion. You're right. Anyway, be careful whenever you're in a place where there are scorpions. Okay, we'll go on to the next sutta. Then we can take some questions. So this is a sutta concerning the Buddha's cousin, whose name was Devadatta. And Devadatta was he was from the Sakyan clan, the same clan as the Buddha. And when the Buddha came back after his enlightenment, when he came back to Kapilavatthu, the capital of the Sakyan state, and taught the Dhamma to the Sakyan people, a number of young men from the Sakyan clan decided to become monks. Among them were Ananda, who is famous as the most learned of the monks, and Anuruddha, who quickly became an arahat and developed the divine eye. And there were a number of other Sakyans, and one of them was Devadatta. And Devadatta, during his early period as a monk, his early time as a monk, quickly he reached success in his development of samadhi meditation. And on the basis of samadhi, he developed the psychic powers. And it's said that when the Buddha reached old age, Devadatta became filled with the ambition to take over the Sangha and become the head of the Sangha, to take the Buddha's place. And he knew that the Buddha was supported by King Bimbisara, a very pious king who is the ruler of the state of Magadha. And Devadatta wanted to get royal support, and he knew that he could not get royal support from Bimbisara. And so he went to the prince, the eldest son of King Bimbisara, whose name was Ajatasattu, and he used his psychic powers to impress Ajatasattu. So Ajatasattu then developed saddha, or prasada, trust and confidence in Devadatta. And Devadatta persuaded Ajatasattu to get rid of King Bimbisara by arranging his assassination so that Ajatasattu would become the king. And Devadatta said, you get rid of King Bimbisara and you become king of Magadha. I will get rid of the Buddha and I will then become head of the Sangha. Then you can support me and I will promote you. And so Ajatasattu succeeded in arranging the death of his father, King Bimbisara, not through a forceful assassination, but by having him imprisoned and then stopping his supply of food so that Bimbisara starved to death. And then Devadatta tried in various ways to assassinate the Buddha by pushing a boulder down from a mountaintop while the Buddha was down at the lower part of the mountain on a pathway halfway down the mountain. Devadatta pushed that boulder down while the Buddha was doing walking meditation on that walkway, but the boulder hit another stone. It got deflected, but a little chip of stone broke off from the boulder and flew down and struck the Buddha's leg and wounded his leg. Then Devadatta arranged for a mad elephant to be released from its stall and to be sent down the same road down which the Buddha was walking. And so that elephant came charging at the Buddha, and the Buddha was surrounded by Ananda and by the monks, and all of the monks left the road, and Ananda offered to put himself in front of the Buddha in order to spare the Buddha's life. But the Buddha told Ananda, do not be afraid, and you don't have to step in front of me. No harm will come to me. And then the Buddha radiated his metta, his loving kindness, out towards the elephant. And so the elephant came charging down, got closer and closer to the Buddha. And then the Buddha's loving kindness became more and more powerful. And so when the elephant came into the aura of the Buddha's loving kindness, it stopped running. It just walked gently up to the Buddha, and then it bowed down to the Buddha. And then Devadatta tried in various other ways. He arranged for a series of assassins to come after the Buddha to assassinate him. But all of the assassins, when they came into the presence of the Buddha, again, they were overwhelmed by the Buddha's loving kindness and compassion. They threw their knives away. They came to the Buddha, confessed their transgression, and they asked to be admitted into the Sangha, and they became monks. And so when all of Devadatta's plots to assassinate the Buddha failed, Devadatta became overwhelmed by remorse, contrition, and he wanted to come to the Buddha to apologize for his transgression and to return to the Buddha's fold, to return to the Sangha. But it's said that because Devadatta had committed such grave transgressions against the Buddha, while he was being led towards the Buddha, the ground, the earth split open beneath his feet, and he was swallowed up in the earth and descended to the lowest hell. But it's said that before he was swallowed up into the earth, he called out in the direction of the Buddha. He called out, I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dhamma. I take refuge to the Sangha. And then he was swallowed up into the earth, and the earth closed over him. But the Buddha predicted, he said that Devadatta will spend such and such a long period in the Avicii hell, the lowest of the hells. But at some point in the future, Devadatta will attain enlightenment and liberation as a Pacceka Buddha, that is a solitary Buddha. Okay, so that is in a nutshell. So that is the story of Devadatta. And so in the sutta, the Buddha is speaking about how Devadatta's gain, honor, and praise led to his downfall. And so the gain, honor, and praise, these were the gains and honor that were showered upon Devadatta by King Ajatasattu and probably by the retinue of King Devadatta, because Devadatta was able to exercise, to display miraculous feats through his psychic powers. And so when Devadatta gained these psychic powers, he became swollen with pride, with conceit, with arrogance, and thought that he was so wonderful that he could take over the leadership of the Sangha. And to take over the leadership of the Sangha, he had to get rid of the person who was the head of the Sangha, which was the Buddha himself. And thus he tried to assassinate the Buddha, and all of his plots backfired and led to his death and to his downfall to hell. And then the Buddha uses a number of similes to illustrate this. This is a plantain tree, which is, the plantain is something like a banana, a small, sweet banana. And so it said that this tree yields fruit to its own destruction. So once the plantain tree brings forth its fruits, then the tree dies. And similarly, the bamboo brings forth fruit to its own destruction. Then a type of reed brings fruit to its own destruction. And then a mule becomes pregnant to its own ruin and destruction. I really don't know the breeding habits of mules. Is anybody familiar with this? Do mules actually become pregnant?
They have to be impregnated by humans.
So that they won't become pregnant naturally.
Well, naturally, they're not really a species like a horse is. They're kind of a mixture of a horse and a donkey.
Yeah, they're
right.
A hybrid.
So I was reading up on that, and there have been cases where mules have had babies, but it's not normal. I mean, they don't normally do that. You'd have to lock it up with a horse or something like that in the same area, and then they would they go through their menopause, not menopause, their because they go through a cycle of when they need to procreate animals.
Okay. Anyway, so the sutta says that the mule becomes pregnant to its own destruction. Okay, so the verse just really sums up the same point of the sutta, and then it draws the conclusion that honor destroys the vile man, vile person. And there's a whole series of short suttas in the Samyutta Nikaya, the connected discourses of the Buddha. I think it's chapter 17. It's called Labha Siloka Samyutta, Labha Sakara Siloka Samyutta, in which the Buddha speaks in different ways about how gain, honor, and praise can lead to one's own destruction. And he says in the series of suttas, he says that he's seen a person, a monk, who could not be led astray even by a very seductively beautiful woman, able to resist the lures of that beautiful woman but on account of gain, honor, and praise, that monk was led astray. And then he says that there's a monk who would not tell a deliberate lie, even to save the life of his parents. But that monk told a deliberate lie for the sake of gain, honor, and praise. And then he goes on, so dreadful is gain, honor, and praise, so terrible. And again, he cautions the monks to be wary of gain, honor, and praise. Okay, we'll continue to some point and then I'll take questions. Okay, number 69 is just going through, this is a familiar theme that I think I've covered numerous times, the 4 strivings or 4 right efforts. So this is just a standard formula. But number 70 is an interesting sutta, perhaps rather appropriate to our present time. Okay, so it begins by saying that when kings are unrighteous, you just see the note. So the commentary says, by explaining unrighteous, without performing the 10-fold oblation prescribed by the ancient kings, and without assigning punishment in proportion to the crime, they perform excessive oblations and assign excessive punishments. This is rather brief, but there are more detailed explanations of the duties of a righteous king in the Digha Nikaya, the long discourses of the Buddha, particularly Sutta number 26, the Chakravarti Raja Sihanada Sutta. Digha Nikaya, long discourses, Sutta number 26. And one of the duties of the proper king, the righteous king, is to ensure that there is no poverty within his realm, to give wealth to the poor, and to provide working people with the means to maintain their livelihood, to ensure that farmers have enough seeds to sow the crops and tools to till the land, to ensure that business people have enough capital to conduct their businesses, to ensure that government workers receive proper wages. And it's said that from time to time, the righteous king should go to wise, virtuous ascetics and Brahmins to receive moral instruction, to receive instruction about what is good, what is bad, what is wholesome, what is unwholesome, what kind of courses of conduct to avoid in administering the realm,
Water to make oat milk.
and what kind of courses to follow.
The newest thing that's come out is Starbucks and stuff too. Oh, it's so good. Best tasting. Yeah? Yeah. I have all the one.
I have to mute everybody. Okay, so when kings are unrighteous, so when they violate the basic principles of ethics themselves, involving killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, false speech, using intoxicants, particularly maybe resorting to capital punishment, when they don't provide wealth to the poor, when they don't ensure that people are able to maintain their livelihood and so forth, then everyone below the king follows their examples. So first the royal vassals become unrighteous, then the Brahmins and householders of the capital become unrighteous. then the people in the towns and countryside become unrighteous. And then we have, following from this, I think this would be called, in terms of modern anthropology, sympathetic magic, where when the people are unrighteous, then the sun and moon proceed off course. Then when the sun and moon go off course, the day and night goes off course, months and fortnights go off course, seasons and years go off course. Then when the seasons and years go off course, the winds blow off course and at random. When the winds blow off course and at random, then the deities become upset. When the deities are upset, then they don't allow sufficient rain to fall. And when there's not sufficient rain, then the crops ripen irregularly. And when people eat the crops that ripen irregularly, maybe we could say that these are crops that don't contain sufficient nutritive essence, they're not rich in protein and minerals and vitamins, then people become unhealthy and they become sickly, ugly, weak, and short-lived. Let's see what the note says. Well, this is just about a textual matter. Okay, but the opposite is the case. When the kings become righteous, then their vassals, the members of their court, and the governors of the states under their control become righteous. So the king sets a good example. The king is one, we could say, who observes the 5 precepts and the 10 ways of wholesome action. They don't impose excessive taxes on the citizens. They don't burden them with taxes in order that they could live luxurious and self-indulgent lifestyles in the palaces. They will ensure that all of the citizens have sufficient means to carry on their livelihoods. They'll provide protection against poverty and against the different crises that people face when they can't earn their living in ordinary ways. Probably they will establish a sturdy social safety net, protecting people in times of illness, incapacitation. They will ensure that when people fall sick, that they have, we would say that they have health insurance, and that they can receive the health care that they need. So these would be different types of manifestations of righteous rule. And the kings themselves will live simple lives, contented with, we could say, we're contented with a bare, with the bare necessities, and they will go to visit wise ascetics and Brahmins, receiving their advice about how to rule the kingdom. And so when the kings are righteous, then the members of the court and the governors of the states will become righteous. When the vassals are righteous, then the Brahmins and householders become righteous. The people of towns and countryside become righteous. Then again, we have the sympathetic magic. The sun and moon move on course. The constellations and stars move on course. Everything else moves on course. The deities do not become upset, but actually look with favor on the realm. When the deities look with favor on the country, then they'll ensure that sufficient rain falls. When there's sufficient rain, then the crops will ripen in season, and the crops will abound in the nutrients, vitamins, minerals, and so on. And then when people eat those crops, then they will become long-lived, They'll have beautiful features. They'll be strong and healthy. Look briefly at the Pali here. Yeah, the words that's translated, generally translated off course and on course. Off course is visamang, which actually has, interesting, it has the word sama in Pali has two nuances, at least two nuances. One is even, equal, balanced. And the other nuance of samang is good, righteous. Because when something is moving evenly in a balanced way, okay, when an inanimate object is moving samang, we say it's moving in a balanced way, in an even way. But when a person behaves samang, we say the person is behaving in a good way, a righteous way. And then visamang is the opposite of that. So when something is visamang, when an object is moving visamang, it's moving in an unbalanced, unequal, irregular way. But when a person's behavior is visamang, that is unrighteous behavior, unjust behavior. Okay, then the verses illustrate this with the example of cattle. So it says when cattle are crossing a stream, if the chief bull goes crookedly, then all of the other cattle go crookedly because their leader has gone astray. And so amongst human beings, when the one considered the chief, in the Buddhist time, that's the king, behaves unrighteously, then other people do so as well. So the entire kingdom becomes dejected if the king is unrighteous. And then the opposite, if the chief bull goes straight across, then all of the other cattle go straight across because their leader has gone straight. And so too amongst human beings, when the one considered the chief, when the king behaves righteously, other people do so as well. So the entire kingdom rejoices if the king is righteous. Okay, so that is the material that I wanted to cover. So now we could take some questions. And the way to ask the question is to go to the participant box, and you'll see on the bottom, you see the icon, or I think it's a little box which has the image of a hand, and then you click that box and you can ask the question. Then a hand will appear on my participant box, and then I'll choose people to ask questions. Okay, let's start. I take them in the order in which I see them. Marcel?
Thank you, Bante. So about the snake that killed a monk in Sri Lanka,
Yeah.
would the snake generate a huge unwholesome karma for killing a spiritually advanced person?
Yeah, this I really don't know because it said that karma depends upon intention, and the snake presumably does not know whether a human being that's stepping on it is a monk or a thief. Yeah, so all the snake knows is that it's being stepped upon and it bites. So it seems to me, this is my guess, that the snake, the karma that the snake acquires will just be conditioned by the intention of killing and not by the qualities of the person that it kills. That's my guess, but I don't really know.
Okay, thank you, Bante.
Okay, An.
Hello, Bante. I'm for the sutra about the snake.
Yeah.
I just wonder why the Buddha doesn't offer the word of compassion for the dying monk. Instead, he saying, I read the sutra and I feel it a little bit not showing compassion toward the dead monk.
Well, the monk is dead already. First, we don't know that the Buddha didn't show compassion towards that monk, but the purpose of the sutta is to give advice to the monks who are still alive on how they should prepare themselves and to protect themselves from getting bitten by snakes in the future. So you could say that by giving this advice, the Buddha is showing compassion to the living monks.
Oh, I see. Thank you, Bante.
Okay, CJ Wang.
Okay, talking about the snake, based on your experience, well, love and kindness losses won't work. So common sense still very important to avoid a snake bite.
Say again.
Common sense to avoid a snake bite is very important because
definitely, yeah.
Okay, and about the unrighteous king, should we overthrow him, or what's the purpose? Or like we know he's bad king and cause all the problem. What can we do?
Well, in this country, we don't have kings.
Yes, a bad leader, same problem. Like we have the same problem right now. So should we just vote him out so to solve the problem, or?
Well, people in this country, people have the way they change the government is through the vote. So if we have a leader that we consider unrighteous and unfit to administer the country, then the proper course of action is to vote for his rival. We don't have in this country, since we have, at least we're still maintaining the rudiments of a democratic form of government, it's not proper to enact a violent overthrow of the government. But there are two ways to change the ruler or the president. One laid down in the Constitution is through impeachment, and then following impeachment, removal of office by a vote in the Senate. That was tried already earlier this year. It didn't work. And the other alternative then is through the presidential election, or in the state, the election of a senator or representatives, whatever. Yeah, so it's through the vote that one changes the government. Okay, next, Young.
Yes, Bante. Regarding Sutta 67 and 68,
Yeah.
I have a rather practical question.
Yeah.
In a real life, when I encountered a venomous snake or a devadatta, I remember I felt a strong hatred arose in me. What would be the Buddhist response to that kind of encounter?
Wait,
Run away?
when you encounter somebody like Devadatta,
Yes.
what arises?
Very strong hatred.
A strong hatred arises.
What would be the Buddhist way to respond?
Okay, so what one has to do if one finds that strong hatred tends to arise, the way to sort of weaken that hatred is by doing the regular practice of the loving kindness meditation. Yeah, so the way we systematically practice loving kindness meditation, first usually we begin by developing loving kindness towards oneself, then one develops loving kindness towards close people, one's friends and relatives, then towards neutral people like neighbors, mere acquaintances. Then one will choose some hostile people or aggressive people and practice developing loving kindness towards them. And so when you do this regularly, then you build up in the mind a kind of antidote towards hatred. So it doesn't mean that when you meet in real life the hostile person, that the hatred won't arise. But when you do the loving kindness meditation regularly, then there'll be a tendency, you have a kind of remedy, an antidote towards the hatred that arises. So when you feel the hatred, first the hatred gradually becomes weaker over time as you practice this meditation. But when it does arise, then you could draw upon your previous experience of cultivating this meditation. It's something like like putting money in the bank. So as you're putting money in the bank a little bit week after week, when you meet some major expense, then you could draw upon your bank account to pay that to pay those fees or to purchase that item that you want. So of course you're going to pay the money, but you have the money accumulated. So it's like developing the loving kindness when you meet the provocative situation or a provocative person, then you draw upon the loving kindness that you've developed. You're able to bring it up right on the spot to help you deal with the aggressive or hostile person. So learn how to do, you could join us usually on Wednesday evening from 7 to 8. We teach the loving kindness meditation. So you join us.
Intentional avoidance is okay with the Buddhism?
To avoid the person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you can. It's not the final solution. The final solution is to be able to face that person and to interact with that person on the basis of loving kindness. But if you don't feel strong enough yet to be able to interact with that person, then to avoid disagreeable feelings, you can you could avoid the person.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Is it B.A. Balo or Babalo?
Hello, Bodhi. This is Babalo.
Babalo, okay.
Yeah. That was a really good answer that you just provided. That answered my question, actually. I just want to know about the earth swallowing up David Dada.
Yeah.
And Buddha always said, whenever you get angry, think of the simile of the saw.
Yeah.
And so I guess what you just answered, that was a really good answer. Thank you so much.
Okay. I'm trying to look, I see names that often ask questions. I'm trying to see if there are some who don't get a chance to ask so often. Okay, let me go out of turn. I think Tejas Shinde, I don't recall seeing his name before.
Hello, Doctor.
Okay.
So this is Tejas, and this is my mother over here. So the question that I would like to present is that the Buddha over here is instructing about how a king could direct the whole society in the right direction.
Yeah.
Now the thing is, like, Buddha also talks about democracy through his discourses of here.
I lost your voice.
Yeah. So Buddha also talks. Yeah. So Buddha also talks about democracy through the when he uses the word use as
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm not getting the voice. The voice is breaking up into little packets of sound and not coming through continuously.
Okay, all right. So the thing is, if a king is supposed to direct the society in the right direction, then how can these very principles be applied in a democratic situation? So this is a question. I apologize.
Okay.
It's okay, Bhante.
Okay. Okay, so we don't have a kingship, but so much, I would say, of the direction of a democratic country depends on the direction given by the president of the country. In the United States, we supposedly have 3 co-equal branches of government. So not everything depends upon the president. The president is not an autocrat, a dictator, but the president plays probably the major role in determining policy. But the laws of the country are supposed to be made by Congress, a democratically elected Congress. And then the final judgments are made by the judiciary. So all three branches of government have to work together. And so I would say that the success of a administration in a democratic country depends upon having virtuous, wise, compassionate people in all three branches of government. I say we can never expect perfection of human beings in positions of authority, but at least we have to be able to evaluate the character of the people who are campaigning for these positions and who are elected to these positions, evaluate their characters, and then look at the policies that they're proposing. And then decide, once we elect them, in a sense, we're stuck with them for either 2 years or 4 years, or even for a lifetime in the case of certain judicial positions. But we have to be very, very astute in being properly evaluating them during their campaigns and making sure that we vote for the right people. Okay, now I'll come up to, whoops, the top of the list. Okay, Vinyu.
Yes, good morning, Bhante. I have a question regarding the unrighteous king as well. There's an equivalent of a Chinese sutta called the Suragama Sutta, the Ren Yan Jing. But is there any, they talk about because of the unrighteous people in the world, that's why that you have, so for example, greed, you have great flood, which we have seen, say, in China, and that if they are excessive of anger, there will be a lot of fire, which we have seen in Australian fire and the Californian fire, and also delusion, and that we were going to have a lot of typhoon or cyclone, and a lot of conceit and pride, there will be earthquake, which I haven't seen for 2020, and that if there is a lot of suspicion or doubt, there will be pandemic. So in suttas. So I'd just like to ask whether is there any equivalent suttas in the Nikayas?
I have to say no. And I have to say that that scheme is, I don't find it very convincing. To correlate particular mental defilements with particular types of natural calamities. And even, you know, when we look at the natural calamities we're facing today, you know, even though I would say we can't assign the blame for this to any one particular presidential administration or particularly administration, like we can't say that the wildfires in California and the severe hurricanes in the Southeast United States are the fault exclusively of the Donald Trump administration, because conditions have been building up. The global warming and climate change have been building up since, you know, the beginning of the 20th century. So what I would say is that as the administrations continually neglect to take thorough, fast, effective action to reduce carbon emissions from administration to administration, from generation to generation, the conditions are building up more and more in ever greater strength for more dangerous calamities to unfold in the future. So I say all of the administrations are to some extent responsible for the calamities that we're facing in California, in the Southeast, and in other parts of the country. And it's up to any administration to start taking action now to cut the carbon emissions.
Yeah, so back to the question. If
I think I have to give time to, I can't conduct this as a discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, HDM.
Thank you, Bhante. Is there any room for bad luck in Buddhist cosmology?
You mean for sheer coincidence?
Well, yeah, being bitten by a snake or by a scorpion, you know, where it's karmically neutral.
I would say so. I would say so, that you just make the mistake of stepping on the snake. I don't think it's always determined by karma.
Mm. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Lim. Okay, then I go to the Savan Kumar.
Hello, Bante.
Who is this?
Yeah, I'm Savan Kumar.
Okay.
I have two questions. First question is regarding to the righteous. So in the sutta, it is mentioning like for king, royal vessel, householder, and Brahmins. For everyone, it is mentioning that they should be righteous.
Yeah.
What this righteous is referring to? It looks like it's same for everyone. What that righteousness referring to?
The sutta itself doesn't elaborate on what is meant by righteous, but we could assume from other texts from other texts within the Nikayas that it would mean acting in accordance with the 5 precepts or observing the 10 ways of wholesome action, the 10 ways of wholesome conduct.
Which for 10 ways of wholesome conducts, which sutta I can refer, Bhante?
Oh, you find those in many suttas. In the Anguttara Nikaya, the book of 10s, sutta number around the 170s.
170.
And
Okay.
in the Majjhima Nikaya, the middle length discourses, sutta number 41.
41. Okay, okay, Bhante, noted. My next question is...
Yeah, so I have to give only one question because I have to go through and everybody has to get their chance.
Okay, Bhante.
So if I finish the others, then you could raise the question.
Okay, thank you, Bhante.
Okay, Lim, I'll go to him first since I missed him on the last time around.
Okay.
Lim Kim.
Morning, Bhante.
Okay, good morning.
Yeah. Just now you mentioned about, Devata was swallowed by the earth when it opened up.
Yeah.
And also Buddha foresee that in future you become the Pachika Buddha.
Yeah.
In which sutta is it mentioned or is it a commentary?
Yeah, this actually is in the commentaries.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I don't know that we should take this literally. It just seems to be a way of saying, maybe metaphorically, that when Devadatta died, he got sick when he was coming to the Buddha. When he was being brought to the Buddha, he became sicker and sicker. And so probably he died on his way to the Buddha. And the way of indicating metaphorically that he was reborn in the hell is by saying that the earth split open and swallowed him. Okay. Okay, Yoland.
Hi, hello, Bhante.
Hello.
My question relates more to the way the suttas are put together, because I've been looking at them as a whole. For example, Sutta 67 and then Sutta 68.
Yeah.
Sutta 67 speaks about the snakes, and Sutta 68 speaks about the king. And there are relationships, it seems to me, in the content of the snake and the king. The snake is biting the man, and the king is biting the people. And I'm wondering, if there's a correlation between why one sutta is put after another. And do you understand what I'm trying to say?
I understand the question, and it's what I would say is that in the different chapters or vaggas within the Anguttara Nikaya, the vagga is usually a group of 10 suttas. Sometimes one could see connections between a few suttas in that chapter, but one can't see connections between all of them.
Okay,
There's a great deal of arbitrary
Okay, yes, that's my question. Thank you very much. Thank you, Bhante.
Okay. I'm going to skip over Marcel first and come to Christopher, to give everybody a chance. Okay, so Christopher.
Hi, it's actually good to see you, Bhante. Good to see everyone. Similar to that last question, I didn't know if there was an association with the 4 royal families of snakes to any particular association of a unwholesome leader or defilement. I guess you'd have to know more about each of the particular types of snake groups to make that association. I don't know
No,
if that was ever done.
No, I wouldn't connect the 4 types of snakes to particular defilements.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, now we can take Marcel.
Thank you, Bhante. In dealing with a hostile person like Devadatta, the Buddha doesn't seem to me, the Buddha doesn't seem to try to actively stop Devadatta from causing troubles. So my question is, why did not the Buddha try to actively stop Devadatta from causing troubles?
My guess is that he probably tried in the early period of Devadatta's rebellion against the Buddha. But it's all, in fact, it's also possible that the Buddha foresaw that there would be no possibility of changing Devadatta. I really don't have an answer to this because all we could do is speculate. There's no sort of clear treatment of that question in the text. But I would guess that the Buddha probably tried in an early time after Devadatta became a monk, he probably tried to transform Devadatta and lead him into a wholesome direction. But at a certain point, Devadatta just broke away. He was overcome by ambition, and then he just decided to try to assassinate the Buddha and take over the Sangha. Okay, Savan Kumar again.
Hello, Bhante. The next question was regarding the loving kindness. How much importance should be given for loving kindness during the practice?
In my opinion, the practice of loving kindness is extremely important, which doesn't mean that you have to make it the primary meditation subject. But what I suggest, what I often recommend to people is arranging their session a bit the way I do it on Saturday morning. So say if you have a 40-minute session, you might do 30 minutes of mindfulness of breathing or some type of body awareness, and then for 10 minutes, do the loving kindness meditation. Or else if you're doing several periods of meditation a day, even if they're shorter periods, you might have one session that's dedicated to loving kindness, even 15 or 20-minute session dedicated to loving kindness. Because I would say probably the biggest problem that human beings face in trying to live together is hatred, anger, hatred, ill will. And when that ill will becomes strong enough, turning into violence. So the antidote to ill will and hatred is loving kindness.
Okay, Bhante, thank you for answering. And I am extremely thankful for your translation of suttas. I am very happily benefited with your translations. Thank you very much, Bhante.
Okay. So I see a new question from Don.
Okay, you mentioned, were there any unrighteous kings during the time of Buddha? And
Yes.
Are there any suttas where he has given advice? I mean, try to put them right. You mentioned Sihanada or Chakravarti Sihanada Sutta.
Yeah, well, I already mentioned the Jatasattu, who killed King Bimbisara and became the king himself. And later in his career, Jatasattu was overcome by remorse for killing his father. In fact, he became so oppressed by guilt and remorse that he couldn't sleep. And so he decided to come to the Buddha to have some discussion with the Buddha. And then through his discussion with the Buddha, he became a follower and supporter of the Buddha. And then after the Buddha's passing, he was the one who was the sponsor, the patron of the first Buddhist council held outside Rajagaha. I'm sure there were other unrighteous kings during the Buddha's time.
Right. So you said there's a sutta where he has said what a righteous king should be.
Yeah.
Is that a general sutta, or is that in relation to some advice to a particular
No,
king?
that's a general sutta. It's not given to a particular king, but it's just a general statement. It's Digha Nikaya Sutta number 26.
Yes, okay.
And
Thank you,
Digha
Bhante.
Nikaya Sutta number 5 is also relevant. Okay, we take 2 more questions and I'll have to end. On.
Bhante, the sutra about the snake, I remember there is a sutra about a monster snake that actually protecting the Buddha. Could you please let me know where is that sutra's form? Because not all snake is
Yeah, that
bad.
is the, it's not the case that all snakes are bad. That is the Mucha Linda is the name of that snake. And it occurs in the work called the Udana. It's one of the early suttas in the Udana, and it also occurs in the Vinaya Pitaka, in the Mahavagga. That's the 4th book of the Vinaya Pitaka, which gives an account of the Buddha's early teaching career. And this was right after the Enlightenment, even before the Buddha started to teach. He was still sitting near in the vicinity of the Bodhi tree, and there was some rain started to fall. And it said that this was a cobra that came out and spread his hood over the Buddha to protect him from the rain. Okay, Yolande?
Bhante, I have a question, but it's also kind of like a request, but I don't know if you can answer all this today. So maybe at another time you can finish it. I'm thinking of, I'm coming across several different types of meditation, right? Yeah. And there are several different types of meditation. You have to excuse me. I've spent many years studying Mahayana, so I'm coming from Mahayana background to Theravada. Yeah. And I was wondering if at some point you can talk about all the different types of meditation and their relationship to the path. Because now we're talking about loving kindness.
Yeah, I don't think that I could fit that in.
I know that, but I'm realizing now there's loving kindness, there's insight, there's this, there's several different kinds, and it's obviously related to specific behavior.
Yeah. I've given in the past, and I'm planning to do this again in November, to do a retreat based on what I call the 4 protective meditations, which are recollection of the Buddha, which is supposed to be the way of strengthening one's faith and devotion. Then the loving kindness meditation, which is the antidote to ill will. Then there's the Asubha meditation, the meditation on the impure nature of the body, which is the antidote to sensual lust. And then the meditation on death, which is the antidote towards laziness and heedlessness.
Wow. Okay. That would be wonderful. Okay, I'll look forward to that retreat.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I see one question from my old friend Amalak. Then this will have to be the last. Yeah, this will have to be the last one.
Venerable, I waited till the last one, but I don't want to keep you for a very long time. I have a very strong feeling about every statement that Buddha makes comes true.
Yeah.
And mine is not a question. I'm just making a statement, and I hope that it is true that this gain, honor, and praise swells the head of some fickle people and causes their ruination.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to November 3rd for this statement to come true.
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay.
That was it.
Okay.
So I don't want to.
I have to say that the Buddhist Association of the United States does not endorse candidates for office.
I understand that too, but you know, generally all these statements, they bring fruit. They are very effective.
Yeah.
They're very precise and truthful. So
Okay, yeah.
we'll see.
Okay.
But anyway, it's very good to see you, Bhante.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll have to end for the day, and let me quickly try to find the text for sharing the merits. Okay, so we do the sharing of the merits. Okay, so this is to share the merits with the devas, particularly the Dhamma protecting devas, the nagas or dragon spirits that regulate the weather, and with all other beings. So we could chant in Pali. Akasata chabumata deva naga mahidika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakantu sasanang. Akasata chabumata deva naga mahidika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakantu desanang. Akasata chabumata deva naga mahidika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakantu mang parang. Then I'm going to do this a little short way. Etavatacham hehi sampadang punya sampadang sabbe deva anumodantu sabbe bhuta anumodantu sabbe sata anumodantu sabba sampati siddhya bhavagupadaya avici hetato etantare satakayupapanna rupi arupi cha sanya sanino dukkha pamuchantu pusantu nibuting. Then everybody goes sadhu, sadhu,
Sadhu, sadhu. Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you very much, Bhante.
Wait, don't sign off yet, don't sign off.
Okay.
Yeah, just some announcements. Okay, some upcoming events. This afternoon, there'll be a lecture from the library, from the Chuangyan Library, by Lama Rod Owens.
Wow.
Yeah, he is an African-American Lama in the Tibetan tradition. I think you have to register for that, but you should still be able to register through the BAUS website. Though it might come over YouTube without registration. Okay, so that is this afternoon, 2 o'clock.
Oh.
Sunday evening, that's tomorrow evening, there'll be meditation with Bhante Mangala from 7 to 8 p.m. And he will have a question period after the meditation from 8 to 8:30. Then I have the meditation Wednesday from 7 to 8 p.m. The next weekend, we don't have a class because I'll be giving the Abhidhamma retreat, which I hope people have registered for that. The registration through Zoom is now closed, but if you didn't make the registration and you want to follow the Abhidhamma course, you can still follow it over YouTube. To get the details, you go to the website, to the Buddhist Association website.
You have to wait. Bante almost done.
What is that?
No.
No, there's no waiting. Everybody who's registered is automatically registered. But now the registration is closed because it's full. But you can still follow the Abhidharma retreat without registration through YouTube. It will come over YouTube. Okay, so with this, we're going to end the session. So thank you, everybody, for joining.
Thank you very much, Bante.
Thank you,
Thank you, Bante.
Thank you, Bante.
Okay.
Thank you, Bante. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you,
Bante.
Okay.
Thank you, Yolanda.
Okay.
Bye, Annie
Thank
Tang.
you,
Bye,
Bante.
Annie
Thank you,
Tang.
Bante. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Bante.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Bante.
Bye, Bante.
Okay, bye-bye.
Have a nice weekend.
Even happy.